Hello, and welcome to the fascinating world of split-page note-taking. My name is Kent Eaton, and I am not only the creator of this PowerPoint presentation, but I will serve as the narrator as well. Sit back, relax, and prepare to be amazed as we learn more about this instructional routine to develop content literacy. Some may ask, why take notes? Author and literacy expert Douglas Fisher says there are two main purposes for note-taking: to promote active listening and reading skills, and to create a record for later recall and application. Likewise, Francois Bosch stated in a 2005 edition of the Writing Across the Curriculum Journal, note-takers take notes to fulfill two major functions: to record information and to aid reflection. That is, to build up a stable external memory in a form that can be used at a later date. Both writers would agree. Whether you're taking notes from a lecture, a reading assignment, or simply making a shopping list, more than likely you're going through the effort to establish a tool that will remind you of something very important at a later time. So, how are notes taken? People often take notes in one of three ways. Students, for instance, often use a linear method, that is, attempting to jot down every word of a professor's lecture, or simply writing down verbatim every word of every important sentence from a textbook. Experts in note-taking agree. Linear structure is the least effective method. Some students, however, prefer the outline structure, that is, writing things down in chronological or thematic order. Even though experts believe outline structure to be a more effective style of note-taking than linear structure, it is still not the desired method. Many believe the matrix structure to be far superior than all other ways of note-taking because, as Bosch says, it requires the attention to be more precisely focused on the access, the sorting, and coding of the information. This, my friends, leads us into one style of note-taking that utilizes the matrix structure, a system commonly known as split-page note-taking. One of many note-taking strategies available to students, the purpose of split-page note-taking is to write notes using headings and subheadings to structure the layout of the notes. Split-page note-taking has been around for over 60 years and is known today by many different names. It is believed that Walter Pauk, a professor at Cornell University, first created split-page note-taking as a way of helping his students better prepare themselves for tests. He called his method of note-taking Cornell Notes. I first learned of this style of note-taking 10 years ago when my school, the Pleasant Lee Middle School in Lee Summit, Missouri, was following the Reading Across the Disciplines, or the RAD strategies. We called this system of note-taking double column notes. Likewise, the CRMS Literacy Group calls it two-column notes, and the Reading Quest organization calls their system simply column notes. No matter what you call it, this matrix style of note-taking has been proven extremely beneficial to many students. The procedures of split-page note-taking can be summarized in 4 simple steps. Begin by writing the topic or title of the chapter across the top of the note page. Next, divide the page into 2 columns with 1/3 on the left and 2/3 on the right. Follow by writing major headings or questions in the left column. Finally, write more detailed information or answers to the questions in the right column. Let's take a look at what I mean. Take a close look at this sample template. Perhaps you've already noticed that those who teach this form of note-taking suggest you utilize every inch of available space, including the very top of the page, both the left and the right margins, as well as the entire bottom. Once again, notice the top space is reserved for such items as the name of the class, the topic, or the chapter title. Some might want to add additional information, such as the student's name, the date, or the page in the textbooks from where the information was taken. The smaller left-hand column is designated for major headings or questions. Likewise, the larger area in the right column is the space where one is to write the details associated with the headings or the questions. It may interest you to know that Cornell notes suggest designating the space along the bottom 1 inch of the paper to write a summary of the notes. Double column notes, 2-column notes, and column notes pretty much use the same format that you see here for their system of note-taking. Now, let's take a close look at how I would utilize split-page note-taking in my history class. I could easily see my students utilizing split-page note-taking during our recent U.S. Constitution unit, especially as we discussed the 3 branches of government. You will immediately see the class and topic listed across the top of the page. Next, you will see the 3 branches of government listed using one-word headings in the left-hand column. The right column are the details that I would want my students to remember. For instance, the purpose of the legislative branch is to make laws. The legislative branch, referred to as Congress, is divided into 2 houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. I would want my students to know that the number of representatives allowed each state is proportionate to that state's population. Likewise, I want my students to remember that each state representative serves a 2-year term of office. The senior house of Congress is the Senate, consisting of 2 senators from each state, no matter how large or how small that state may be. Unlike members of the House, senators serve a 6-year term of office. With the use of split-page notes, my students can more easily remember the purpose of the executive branch is to enforce laws. Likewise, these notes would help my students better visualize the executive branch is made up of the president, the vice president, and the president's cabinet. Finally, the notes can help students learn the purpose of the judicial branch is to interpret the law. This branch of federal government is made up of the Supreme Court, circuit courts, and district courts. Here is another example as to how I have used split-page notes in the past. About 8 years ago, when I was teaching emotionally disturbed and behavior disorder students in my ED classroom, I used this style of notes with my cooperation unit. Because many of my students had disabilities related to reading and written expression, I chose to simply make the notes for them in the form of a handout. You'll notice that I put questions in the left-hand column and simply provided spaces for my students to fill in the blanks in the right column. Even though many experts would suggest that this style of note-taking, that is filling in the blanks, is not truly effective because it does not engage the student in necessarily thinking about the notes, that they're just simply looking for words, still I found this to be effective with my special education students. When my school was adamantly using the RAD strategies, we would often suggest that students take their completed double-column notes, fold the right side of the page over to meet the center column, thereby covering up the details or answers to the questions in the right column. Now that the major headings are the only things visible, students could easily review their notes and quiz themselves over the details that complement each heading. If a student were to get stuck, or if they simply want to check their answers for accuracy, all they would need to do is simply open up the right-hand column for a quick peek. Seeing how easy this form of note-taking can be, I will definitely want to utilize this style of note-taking for years to come. And because it is not necessary to write complete sentences, It appears to me that this style of note-taking is simply or especially beneficial for all my students, even those who have been diagnosed with a disability in written expression. Perhaps you're thinking to yourself, gee, I could even use this split-page note-taking in my classroom. Francois Bosch states, split-page notes may be effective in most courses of study, especially those classes where there is a heavy emphasis on reading, such as social sciences, natural sciences, and language arts. So, if your students have had little or no experience with split-page note-taking, how do you get started? Douglas Fisher says, as you would expect, teachers need to model the process of taking split-page notes and structure ample time for guided practice if students are to become proficient. Fisher also says that split-page note-taking is best utilized not before or after, but during reading time. He also states this strategy of note-taking aids in both comprehension and writing skills. Among the many benefits related to split-page note-taking, Fisher says this instructional routine benefits every student in developing content literacy in these ways. It is a logically organized format. It helps learners separate big ideas from supporting details, and it allows for inductive and deductive prompting. In closing, I would like to thank these literacy experts from whom I was able to obtain much of the information shared in this presentation. In addition, I would like to thank you for sacrificing 13 minutes of your time to watch this PowerPoint presentation. Now that you have familiarized yourself with this instructional routine to develop content literacy, hopefully you will be ready to utilize split-page note-taking in your classroom. Thanks again for watching, and goodbye.